Hi, Les. How are you? Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are.
Very true. Very true. Good morning. Good afternoon. How is everyone today?
Very good. Thanks for having us.
Yes,
Awesome.
very good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you too. Pearl, I think we're ready to rock and roll. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Les Harrison. I am on the brand partnerships team at OUTFRONT Media. I'm so honored to be moderating this fireside chat today with Anna and Kandie. They have so kindly titled this chat, Progress, Not Perfection, the Role of Brands in Racial Equity and Social Justice Conversations. There's been a lot of talk around the role of brands over the past year. We've certainly heard from many marketers giving examples right here on this Brand Innovator stage of how their brands are living out their purpose, and excited to hear what we're going to share today. Even publishers are getting into this conversation as well. As one of the largest out-of-home media companies in the US, OUTFRONT is committed to helping people, places, and businesses grow stronger. This purpose gets manifested on our canvases nationwide. And as part of our continued commitment, we recently partnered with Color of Change on a campaign titled Until Justice is Real, which is currently running in 9 cities. Now, I know Anna and Kandie, you guys have been working hard over the past year. You mind telling us a little bit about you and your work?
Absolutely. I can start. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Schechtman. I'm part of the brand strategy team here at Walmart. And the work that I do, just to give you a little bit of background about myself, is I really lead the brand conversations around our Live Better promise. So thinking about our purpose and really being in the Live Better business, but more specifically, how that manifests into conversations with diverse communities across the country. So that's really important to us. This is really meaningful as it relates to speaking directly to diverse communities, whether that be the Black community, the Hispanic community, the gay community, but also how those conversations really manifest in other areas of our conversation, how we really think about, the ways we include conversations around inclusion and equity within sustainability, U.S. manufacturing, local giving. So those are the areas that we've been thinking about over the past year, especially as many of those conversations are coming to light across the country.
Just a small job, right?
A small job.
Kandie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Sure. I'm Kandie Strickland. I'm the VP Campaign Management for Burrell Communications. And Burrell in 2021 is celebrating 50 years of leadership in the diversity marketing space. And we work with Walmart as a partner and a host of other clients and really guiding them in the ongoing conversation with their consumers. We are a nimble and very excited group of marketers based out of Chicago, Illinois, but we have team members really across the country. And at this time, which is an exciting time to be doing the work, we work with Walmart in the capacity of managing retail campaigns, as well as what we call AA Evergreen work, which is brand reputation work for African American. So very
Awesome.
excited to have this conversation today.
Very cool, and congratulations on the anniversary. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
And let's kick it off, Anna. I would love to know, this past year has definitely been challenging. I would love to, and I'm sure the audience would love to understand, how has your work changed from a brand perspective, just, in light of the recent events over the past year?
Of course. I mean, let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I got here. I'm actually fairly new at Walmart. I'm about 6 months in, but one of the things that I knew, and our CMO, William White, speaks to this as well, is that Walmart is one of the few organizations within this country that truly have the size and scale to make meaningful change. When they say something, they are 100% behind it. And one of the things that I was really passionate about, as part of the great things I was hearing about Walmart, was their commitment to fighting systemic racism. So last year, they created or stood up the Center for Racial Equity, which is our commitment to diverse communities. It's essentially $100 million to create the Center for Racial Equity, and it focuses on 4 key areas of conversation. And so for me, a lot of that promise really starts from the business. And a lot of that is really framing out what is it that we are going to stand behind? And then how then does marketing support that? So from the marketing standpoint, when I joined and really kind of thought about, what is our purpose, in going to market, really thinking about not just those seasonal moments where we feel like we have to show up, but really developing what is an always on strategy in speaking directly to communities of color. What does that mean for us? I mean, it means that we are always thinking about meaningfully showing up, authentically showing up in the right ways, in some celebratory ways, of course, but sometimes in more meaningful, more commemorative ways, depending on the time frame, the mindset, and all the conversations that we are having within this country. And so those are the ways that we've really changed. It's not necessarily a seasonal kind of retail moment that we're focused on. We really are trying to find the sort of sense of heartbeat where the community is, really understanding them at any moment in time, and really ensuring that we are delivering for them in those meaningful ways, not just within moments that you expect us to be in, but in all the ways that we are showing up, even in sort of less eventful or awareness kinds of moments.
That's awesome. You must have done some sort of research to understand how this all, how to respond and all that good stuff. Do you mind kind of walking through, some of that research and what that told you about your customer?
Yeah, of course. So this research was led by our amazing partners at Burrell, and we did qualitative and quantitative studies with many participants in the Black community across the country. And after last year, a lot of the community was really like, "Hey, thank you for the thoughts and prayers. I really appreciate it from everyone. Now, where are your receipts? Show me where the rubber hits the road." And I think that is where a lot of our intentfulness around the dimensions of conversation has really started and really framed, how we thought about the kind of conversations we want to have. So the research told us that we have to figure out what the customer needs. Show us your receipts. Show us the business receipts. So us as marketers talking meaningfully to the organization around what are the areas we can meaningfully deliver to this community. And then really framing that out against where the brand is and where the brand is today and where can we move forward with it. Because unlike other brands that, perhaps have a little bit more permission to be at the center of the conversation, we realize not everyone has that same kind of permission. And so we really were trying to triangulate between the customer need, which is showing them our receipts, the business opportunity, which is, really making sure that we're partnering closely about those receipts meaningfully. And then where the brand is, which is, hey, we haven't quite been in this conversation yet. We want to be, and we want to be there authentically. Now, how do we make those three things come together in a meaningful way, in an authentic way?
For sure.
Yeah, and Les, I would just add that part of the importance of the relationship between Burrell and Walmart is really talking about that conversation. And when is the right time? What is the right message when the brand enters into it? Anna mentioned about the retail presence that Walmart has. So there's always a lot of conversation, a lot of messaging around the seasons, spring, summer, back to school. But the conversation that we're talking about is one that needs to be sustained across the retail seasons and really talking about the things that matter to the community. So of course, we buy groceries. There are things that we're going to do to prepare for summer, but there are also bigger conversations and topics that are happening in homes, African-American homes across the country. And so Burrell seeks to really guide Walmart as to how they enter into those conversations in a way that's respectful, a way that's relevant, a way that's timely. So that's kind of the juxtaposition between being like the largest retailer there is, but also realizing that your customers have an expectation that you're also going to talk to them about the life themes that matter.
Yeah, that's really great stuff. You guys, mentioning the collaboration between the two, I think you guys have some really great work to share during May and June. I believe we have a quick video. And then after we play the video, if you guys wouldn't mind telling us, a little bit about that conversation and kind of what led to this creative. So BI, if you guys will play the video around Center for Racial Equity. Hello? There we go.
The Center for Racial Equity at Walmart was created to address systemic racism. Walmart is investing in organizations that are accelerating change in four systems, which are health, education, criminal justice, and finance. We're identifying needs within the Black and African American community and sowing seeds that will bear fruit for many years to come.
So I'll just hop in here. Thanks for sharing that spot this afternoon. So as we all know, we're nearing very quickly the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And just like last year, this year, it is a very dicey type of situation for brands to navigate. There's an expectation in the community that brands will at least acknowledge, I think, the pain, the fear, the anger that's being felt across the board. However, in this instance, this is not necessarily a conversation that you're going to jump right in and start talking about if it's not an area where you've been leading. And so as partner to Walmart, our recommendation was like, you know what, let's talk about what Walmart is doing, the commitment that was made June 2020 to invest $100 million to really address and help end systemic racism in key areas that overarchingly impact the African American community. So the spot that you just saw is one of 3 online videos that's also accompanied with social media and digital that really talk about that $100 million investment, and then even share stories across the organizations that received the dollars, and then what we foresee to be the long-lasting impact of that investment. And so like the key learning here is this is not an issue that one organization, even as large and impressive as Walmart, can solve, but every brand, every organization can own their commitment to join the fight. And also, it's very important that brands aren't shy about sharing what they're doing. Otherwise, you can't assume that your customers know.
Great.
Yeah, that's right, Kandie. And there were many long nights about, it felt like now that, our creative is out in the world that, it's the right thing to do and a foregone conclusion that we would talk about this. But there were many long nights. I called Kandie and I said, are we ready to have these conversations? Is this brand just where it is right now and where the customer conversation is? Are we going to meaningfully bridge that conversation? And one of the things that, we really, partnered on in terms of like a mantra as part of the conversation to showing up meaningfully is progress, not perfection, which is to say that there are elements that we are all still working on, both personally and professionally, to really be a true and meaningful ally to communities, to diverse communities. And that at the end of the day, we are all slowly walking through that. And Walmart ought to show up because we do have the size and scale and the opportunity to make meaningful change in that way where we can speak authentically to the things we're doing. And we hope to continue to do that. This is just the start of the conversation. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a multi-year conversation around our Live Better promise to the Black community. And that's how I think about, how my purpose work all up really links back to really this sharp conversation, which is what are all the ways we're delivering our Live Better promise? This is just one of them.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting is, we just heard about, some of the social things that are going on in the world and why it's the right time. But, why is it time for I think for brands to be having this conversation? I mean, we understand like some of the stuff going on, but why now, right? A year later, right? Or, whenever.
Yeah, so what I will say, and Anna alluded to this, last year, it seemed like the community was really looking to see which brands were going to hand raise and say, we understand, we are with you. So a year later, the conversation never stopped. If anything, the conversation heated up. And I think what has been very surprising to some, not as surprising to others, is the fact that we look at the role that millennials and particularly the Gen Z generation has held at the center of this conversation. And I think this is why we're having it now, because we have a new generation of folks who are saying to brands, I'm not just going to give you my dollar. Like, my dollar means something, and I'm looking to invest it in brands that support the things that are important to me. And you can't just, create a spot and say, it's important to me. So they are looking for the receipts. They are looking for proof. And I think that the brands that really want to connect with their consumers in a very special way have to have that commitment. It's going to grow from the inside out, and it's not going to be able to be contained when a brand really galvanizes around social justice. So I think that's why now's the time, because consumers are saying now is the time.
Yeah. And I would echo that, Kandie, for sure. We don't just see that in our research around the Black community. We also see it with our research with the Hispanic community. We are doing similar work with our other partner agencies around the Hispanic sentiment. And we have heard, and especially within the Latinx conversation, that the younger generations are really voicing their opinions. They're also influencing their families, especially in multi-generational households, really framing a sense of equity and social justice is something our young consumers are really interested in. And that really does then not only speaks to their purchase habits or purchase intent, but then also actually affects their communities or their sort of circles of trust and conversation. So that really does have an impact to older generations as well.
Yeah, that's impressive stuff. Kandie, would love to hear your perspective on like why it's difficult for brands. It sounds like Walmart's really leaning in and really taking all the research and putting it all together. But some brands haven't really taken that dive forward, and it must be difficult. So we'd love to get your perspective on why is it so difficult for them to decide, and when and how, and all that around the social conversation.
Yeah, so this is a conversation, it's not new in the African American community, and it's not easy. And so whenever you have this type of conversation where there is so much at stake, right? So the question is, do I have a right to be in this conversation? And if I say yes, then what exactly should I say, and when should I say it? There's a lot of risk assigned to how you show up. But what I would offer is that there's also risk associated to not showing up. Because even when a brand is silent, the community is filling in the blanks of what that silence means. And so, we advise our clients, including Walmart, that it's important to decide as a brand where you stand, how you like to talk about how you want to support the community, how you are supporting the community. But it is important for brands to tell their own story. And so I think that's the key thing. The brand needs to speak for the brand. And also I would encourage them, Burrell will encourage them, focus on the brand fans. There will always be naysayers. There will always be the consumers or folks in the public who say you're not doing enough or you're not doing the right thing. But if the message is focused on brand fans, the people that believe in your brand, are rooting for you, want to work with you, see the collaboration, see you as a partner in the community. And if you speak from a place of truth, which is that brand's truth, you should land in the right place. So, you know, it's not easy. Like Anna said, there will be a lot of late night conversations. There are always stakeholders that need to be considered. There are always outcomes that we need to think about. So it's not as straightforward as say what you feel, do what you know. Like there's a lot more involved to Anna's point to even get to 30 seconds that we're willing to televise.
For sure. Also sounds like it's, you know, the brands that are succeeding are taking this consumer-centric approach to DEI. And, you know, I think, you know, as we've got an audience out there of marketers and agency representation, you know, is there anything that you two could kind of give them as sort of guardrails or, you know, advice or guidance as to how they should go about doing it? Or...
So I'm going to toss this to Anna, but, you know, I will say this. It is a moment by moment conversation. And I think one of the things that gets us tripped up is we as marketers, we as brands, we as individuals, right? We want to feel that the actions that we take today are going to have immediate impact. And this is a huge issue. And it takes all of us taking those steps in the moment. What I would say is what's most important is to create a safe space to have the tough conversation. And it should be safe for everyone. It should be safe for the person who's living the experience. It should be safe for the person who's trying to understand the experience. It should be safe for the person who's saying, you know, I just don't get it, but I want to understand. I want to learn more. There are moments where brands can stand up. There are moments where individuals can stand up. And I think a big part of moving this forward is forums like this that help people get educated about the work that's being, that needs to be done, and having people commit to doing the work. So I would say the one guardrail is don't think any one action can change everything. And I would say the second thing, let go of some of your fear. If not all of it, let go of just enough to learn more and commit to doing something.
Kandie, I couldn't agree more. I think that is where, you know, you have helped us really navigate through like what that feels like, because oftentimes you are more concerned about perhaps the backlash than you are about the intention. And so really framing a lot of our conversations around what the customer is asking for us to deliver on in terms of what they want to hear, and then the intention behind it, making sure we are brave and courageous and holding hands about it. The only thing I would add to that in terms of like continuing to be intentful is I have many conversations with many partners internally. So we all held hands. It was not a marketing decision. It wasn't just a Anna and her and her bosses and the CMO, like, you know, making decisions unilaterally. We were really trying to make sure that all voices were heard, that we were getting a lot of perspective both within marketing and outside marketing, and even between diverse colleagues we were having dissension, and really navigating, you know, how best to like really understand this person's perspective versus that person's perspective is really the framing of the opportunity. And at the end of the day, it is just going to be, you know, let's hold hands and kind of move through that conversation, but let's all just make sure we are rooted in where the brand is and how we want to move forward, because that's the right thing to do for the customer. And so that's been, you know, an area that we have had to make sure we are intentional about. I think the second area that I see, and it's an outcome of those kind of conversations, is that racial equity, social justice, these conversations are quite large, and a lot of people in the country really want to know about it. It's not a multicultural marketing conversation. It is an everyone conversation. Mm-hmm. And we have to make sure that we're all on the same page about like, okay, when we deliver this message to market, are we doing it for general market because everyone's interested, or are we doing it specifically for the Black community? And sometimes those conversations are absolutely the same. They want to hear the same thing, and they want to hear intentionality, and they want to hear meaning and purpose, but sometimes they're slightly different. So really understanding, like, and hearing between the lines, like what the research is saying or what your customer is saying, is some of the work we also had to do to make sure that the level of intention was not just for broadly, this is what we stand for, specifically, we stand for you.
It's great. You guys certainly
Yeah.
know your customers, and having that knowledge has really played out very nicely in this part of the conversation as well, especially around the racial inequity and the social injustice. Kandie, another question for you. Just I love your purview on multiple clients. It's really it's a really great perspective. What are some like misconceptions that brands have about their role in this type of conversation?
I think number one is brands think that they don't have to enter into the conversation. I think that's the first thing, is if I'm quiet, this moment is going to pass. But I think even that silence is being recorded. As we do social listening as an agency, we see more and more, forums and chat rooms and even groups where people are calling out the brands that have taken a stance of, we're just going to be silent, we're going to sit this one out. So I think that for brands that maybe are a bit more conservative, have tried to operate on the outside of what's happening in society, they're saying that there's no longer an option for that. And what I'm seeing more and more is folks realizing that intention alone without action, you get no credit for that. And so I think that for some brands more than others, that's a bit of a pivot. But for brands that are used to telling their story and used to weathering the storm, right? To the brands that are, I would say mature like a Walmart, that has had to take the hits from the fans as well as people who are not fans, I think you still have to navigate a bit. But it becomes, they're a bit more comfortable having that difficult conversation because you do have to stay true to your brand. And so I think that's the thing. There's never a point when a brand should really be silent. I think the nuances, knowing what you can talk about. And so it's not anything that we solve in a 30-minute talk here, of course, but you can get the sense of, and even when Anna mentioned many, many layers of stakeholders, many ongoing conversations, because just like the weather, conversations shift. And so there's a tonality that you need to be careful of. And then there's also just looking at the timing and making sure that you want to land in the right place. And sometimes there are hot spots you need to avoid.
It's certainly interesting because everyone has a voice now, right? Social media has made it to where one misstep of a brand and you're blasted everywhere. And it's really, and that's probably what scares a lot of these brands in jumping. They don't want to be that brand that's on, everyone's mind for doing something that's bad. Or that's deemed, not equal or what have you. So it's certainly a tough road to navigate. I think one of the last things I have for you, and then we can get into the Q&A, but, brands have to ask themselves, obviously, like, not only just do we get in, but how do we do it? And they have to be really authentic about it. Both of you guys have mentioned that you can't just check the box and move right on, and you can't just be silent. So it almost kind of puts them in a place where they've got to respond and do it. So what are some of the things that maybe you guys talk through, or that Burrell suggests, maybe some questions that they should ask themselves to start this conversation and navigate it, and also maybe some of the key things that are done internally, because it sounds like a lot of the socialization and ways to get this done is not just putting out an ad. You've got to really kind of look at your organization as a whole and talk to people internally, and really it's a really Herculean effort on everyone's behalf.
Yeah, so Anna, let's play a game of ping pong here. I'm going to toss one out.
Yes.
So number one, I would say it is not a one and done. You cannot drop an ad and then stop talking. The conversation must continue.
My second is acts, not just ads. The conversation ought to continue, but also receipts. Our brand building, as we all know, and as brand builders, are not just made inside marketing, they're made within the experience of the organization and what the conversations we have around our actions.
And I would say number three is you have to be mindful of the conversation that you're entering. So there's nothing worse than a brand jumping into a topic and being off topic. Everyone's going to see that. Everyone's going to feel that. So you have to make sure that you have a pulse on the conversation that's happening and that what you're saying is relevant.
Do I need to do one more?
Sure.
Why not? Close out here and then we can run into some questions.
Making sure that you really actually know the customer. Like, I know we all say that because we're all in a customer-centric conversation, etc. But are you really listening? Are there really do you really understand the framing of the conversation? For example, sometimes conversations around this can be very commemorative and the tone is, a little bit more about sadness, but actually the dimensionality of a customer experience also includes joy, also includes hope, also includes optimism. Do we have other areas of conversation that deliver on those dimensions of the experience? And I think that's really where a lot of this is really going to start to come together for the customer and for the brand. That was
a fun game. I like that. I like that fire round or whatever, right? Yeah. We got a few questions from the audience, so we'll kick those out. One of the questions that I really like is, especially with an audience of marketers and partners out there, is what are the challenges that you've faced in implementing purpose-led programs, and then on the flip side, what are those opportunities as well?
Oh, okay. So I'll start. There are times, from the agency side where we have a great idea of what the messaging should be, but maybe it's not quite the right fit, or, maybe the client's not quite ready to make that particular statement at that time. So I think the tightrope that we walk is making sure that we have a message that's relevant, it's credible, but it also is tightly aligned with, the brand's culture. The opportunity with that, after you kind of walk that tightrope and we nail it, is when you see the evidence in culture, in market, and you see the consumer's response to the work. So that's the win. But I think even bigger than that, there is more applause inside the brand, and Anna can co-sign on this, when the associates see the work and they feel proud of the statement that the company has made. So I think it's not losing sight of the fact that, yes, there are consumers that we're reaching, but there are also internal stakeholders that are individuals who are just as tied to this work, and we need to do the work for them as well.
Absolutely, Kandie, especially with a company like Walmart, where there's more than 1.5 million associates in the United States. It's as much the conversation is about them as it is about the customers we serve. For me specifically, when in terms of both my past life and my current role here at Walmart, we've often talked about the tension of value versus values. Value is business building. I see the dollars. I put an ad out there. I see how much return on investment I get from that. And we all know that brand building is a marathon, and it's a multi-year vision, and it has to be consistent and it has to be focused. And so that's been a lot of the challenge, which is that perhaps, we start this conversation today with the community, but I might actually not see the needle move until next year. And so really making sure that we're all holding hands about the intentfulness and the long-term area of opportunity here. That is actually also the other part in terms of the opportunity, which is collaboration, because inevitably especially within this conversation, you have a lot of marketing and non-marketing stakeholders who are as passionate about the same thing. And I'm not just talking about social justice or racial equity. Some stakeholders are passionate about sustainability and they want to engage you and they know it's the right thing to do. And that's where it also gets interesting, because you start to then bring that purpose-led program building up the funnel to some of the more business conversations and the intentfulness starting from the business, so that we can affect change. I can create the on-ramp for you to have that conversation with the community while you are still building the sort of business areas of opportunity. And so there's a really great sort of area of collaboration within the organization.
I love that. I'm wondering too, as you know, we hear a little bit about how it's tough to get workers, and you know, that as we start to break out of this pandemic, this pride that people have. I know certainly I do, as being part of OUTFRONT and this partnership with Color of Change and the purpose that we've done. I have pride in my organization, and I'm sure that you know, the associates at Walmart, same there too, right? And that they're so in love with their job that, and the fact that their company is standing for something and has beliefs very similar to them, it really probably strikes a chord there all the way through the organization. So that's really great to see. I think we have time for maybe one more question. This one is more about kind of the communicating to your consumers. So how do you guys look at brand purpose, and how has it impacted just the regular kind of marketing efforts just in general?
Yeah, so when you say regular marketing efforts, I think everything is seen through this lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that's the world that we live in. So I think today there is no more regular marketing efforts, if you will, versus marketing or messaging around justice and equity, because they're all one. And so I think what's really amazing now is, maybe years ago when we looked at African-American marketing in particular as necessarily needing to be a separate line item or a separate program, the conversations we have around retail are inclusive, because we're thinking always about the consumer and the audience that we're trying to reach. And we're realizing that it's not monolithic. Like, we can't just do work and say it's general market, because general market now is brown and black and pink and green, like all the colors, right? And so I think what has changed for the better is now we don't have to have a separate meeting to talk about inclusion. Every conversation is inclusive. Every message needs to think about the various segments of consumers that are watching it. And we have to think about those nuances. And so the beauty of it is, when we're around the table now, the table is a lot more diverse as well.
Absolutely. I think it's both, the conversation has to be both deep and wide, which means that the purpose conversation is not just a function of, like Anna talks about these kinds of conversations. It's Anna also shares her knowledge and the intention across all the marketers within this organization, so that we can really infuse it within areas of opportunity.
Really great stuff, ladies. I appreciate the conversation and all the work you're doing. Regular marketing will no longer be vocabulary in my vocabulary. Thank you, Kandie. Pearl, I see you, your smiling face.
Yeah, no, I'm just so proud of all the great work that you have done and standing up for our community and your customers. It's totally inspirational. I keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you guys so much for having us today.
Kandie, Anna, and Les.
Yes, thanks again.
Thanks so much,
Anna. See you, Les.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
See ya.
That was such a great session. We hope to hear from them again soon.